on July 4th, but 10 days later, on July the 14th, 1776, it happened to be the Lord's Day. And it was in the Kentucky settlement. And it was in a part of the Kentucky settlement called Boonesboro. And probably you know where I'm going with that. That was the home of Daniel Boone and several other early settlers in that area. While they knew that there was conflict taking place in our country among the Americans and the British, they had no idea probably at that point that the Declaration of Independence had been signed. Instead, they were concerned about surviving in their wilderness circumstances. It was July the 14th, Sunday, the Lord's Day. Now let me tell you something about Boonesboro in that day. Because it was so small, and because the settlement only had a few strategic families, it was impossible for them to have a parson. That is, a preacher who would be the pastor of the flock in that community. And because of that, they didn't even have the opportunity of having a circuit riding preacher who would come through. But listen to this. It was the custom of that fledgling settlement on the Lord's Day to come together. And here's what they would do. I think it would behoove us to do some of this as we approach the sanctity of our churches as well. Because they would shed the breechcloths and the leather chaps and all of the other things that they wore during the week, and they would go for their best Sunday garment, those garments made of cloth. And they would come together in the meeting place, and there they would customarily read the Word of God. It would fall on a different person in the settlement to read the Word. And that particular day, the Word of God was read, July the 14th, 1776. At the closure of that time, each person filtered back to their cabin. And there wasn't much that they would do because they honored the Lord's Day. They would try to avoid doing as much work as possible. Daniel Boone himself went in to take a nap after he had eaten and laid on his bed. Samuel Henderson that afternoon was shaving when a situation developed. You see, what happened was that 3 young girls from that settlement, one of them, the Boone daughter herself, Jemima, and 2 of the Calloway children, Elizabeth and Frances, decided that because Jemima had injured her foot on some cut cane, that it would feel good if she soothed that sore foot in the river water. Nathan Reed, one of the young men, was supposed to have piloted the dugout canoe. But as it turned out, when the time for them to embark came, Nathan backed out on them. That's a gentleman for you, huh? And those